Hello, folks. Thanks so much for joining us on this Q&A with the Daphne Legacy Tour, our current charity partner for Hoovian Running Club and the Totter's Lane 7.6K. I have with me Chris Taylor, all the way from lovely Denver, Colorado, the founder of the Daphne Legacy Tour. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Brian.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we just want to tell people all of the cool things that we are going to help Daphne Legacy Tour do here in 2019. Because you were our charity partner last year, and that went okay. And by okay means fabulous.
We only broke one record. I don't know.
We only broke one world record, you know, little things like that. What was that world record we broke last year?
We don't have an exact number, but we do know that 24 galgos being moved across the ocean at once is the largest single migration of galgos to the United States ever. So I don't know what the previous number was, but on average, it's about 6 to 8 that are moved at any given point. So it's kind of exciting. It's a big number. It's a big difference.
It is a big difference, and that was because of the Hell in High Heels 12K last year for Hoovian Running Club, and this year we actually have a bit of a head start this year because we have a little bit of head start. You guys may not realize this, but we've had a little bit of money in the kitty for Daphne Legacy Tour since the racery event and the galgoing team. All of those funds from galgoing that you guys did last year, the 24 dogs were already rescued and saved. So we put that money away, and we kept it in a happy little side place, and you know we hugged it every couple of days to make sure that it was loved. We fed it and we watered that money, and now that will be extra seed money that goes to Daphne Legacy Tour.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, I have a little story about that, actually. Could I share a real quick story? During that time, we brought home 24 galgos, and during that time, we lost Clarete, and he was one of our older galgos that came home. And during our actual racery event, I got a notification, actually, about halfway through it, that his mom had said that he was building fluids around his heart and around his lungs, and it was just very painful. And they made the decision to actually let him pass and cross the Rainbow Bridge peacefully and comfortably, and they held him all the while, which is, of course, really all that we want for any of us at any given point. And during that time, our estimate at the time was it was about $500 that we needed. As far as the difference really is what the cost is, because it's about $1,200 to bring home a galgo, not including a lot of the human costs. But at the time, we were paying about $500 of it. And Clarette's mom actually made that donation to us and helped sponsor us. And so we actually took that money. Well, we'll be taking the money because you still have it. And we've started the Clarete Fund. And so we are going out of our way to get a special needs galgo from every single tour from here on out. And it'll be covered by the Clarete Fund. Yeah, and the key with that is there will not be an adoption fee for the galgo that's brought home for the Clarete Fund.
And that makes a lot of sense because there's going to be a lot of additional costs for that future fur parent.
Right.
Because it's a special needs galgo.
That's exactly right. And so we identified our Clarete Fund recipient early on. And so we're very excited. Her name is Trixa. And she's a little girl. She's a little 2-year-old girl, but she's completely deaf. And so we're kind of excited to have her here. There's a fun video, actually, that's on our page, on the Daphne Legacy Tour page, where you can see us figuring out that she can't hear, and it's pretty cute.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if you guys haven't been to the Daphne Legacy Tour page yet, Chris, sounds like your ride's coming.
So I live in downtown Denver, which means you're going to hear that a lot.
Yeah, it does happen. But no, so if you guys haven't been to the Daphne Legacy Tour page yet, please go visit it, like it, share it, tell folks all about it. But let's get down. And for those who have joined Hoovian Running Club in the last 6 months, in the last few months, and may not know anything, let's get down to the basics. What's a galgo?
A galgo is a Spanish greyhound, and they're also known as the most abused breed on the planet. So greyhounds in general used to be the dog of royalty across the world. And slowly but surely that seems to have changed, which is really unfortunate. But in Spain, they seem to have a special, I really have yet to find the proper word for this, so I don't even know what it is, but it's a special hell that they feel the need to put the galgo through. And so the disposal method of galgos is pretty severe, pretty bad. And so It's become a very bad situation. There's almost 100,000 of them that are dumped every single year, whether that be killed, thrown down wells, whether that be just dumped on the streets, whatever the case may be. We have no idea how many are actually bred. We have no idea how many actually make it. The numbers are just, I mean, honestly, groups are just doing what they can to save what they can, right? So there's no statistics out there that really give us anything to work with. But there are a handful of groups across Spain that are doing a phenomenal job rescuing who they can, what they can. And then, of course, we are doing our best to get over there and bring them to the United States. They are adopted, some in Spain. It's kind of the in dog in Barcelona right now.
Which is
great. Yeah, it's really good. And then, of course, they're adopted across Europe as well. But getting them to the United States has sort of been the challenge. It's expensive to fly them across the Atlantic. And so there's a large number of people in the sighthound world in the US that would love to have a galgo. And in Europe, they can be a little more particular and maybe don't want one that's a scarred up, or maybe don't want one that's older. In the US, people just really want to share and save. And so we are out of our way going to find the ones that are stuck into the actual shelters a little bit longer than others, whatever the reason may be. And we bring home the forgotten galgos. That's our role.
And that's awesome. And so Daphne Legacy Tour started last year working with Scooby Medina.
Correct.
And that is near Medina, Spain.
That is. It's Medina del Campo is the actual town that it's located in. So it's about 120 miles northwest of Madrid. So we fly into Madrid, and it's about a 2-hour drive from there.
Gotcha. And now Scooby, they took that name actually from the cartoon Great Dane?
I don't actually know.
Or is Scooby like a nickname of somebody who lives in Medina, in that town? I don't know.
I don't know, but we should ask
that
them.
Question. We need to ask that question. I need to know if they've based themselves off the Mystery Machine, and because that would be fun to know. So how does the process of getting the dogs over from Spain to the United States actually work? Because it's not like Scooby Medina can just drive them to the airport and drop them off and hand them to somebody.
No, but if they could, that'd be so much easier.
It would be easier. So how does the actual process work?
So the first thing we do on this side is we have to actually clear them through the USDA. And so we actually fill out a considerable amount of paperwork on our side. There's some requirements that are involved. And so one of the things that the United States wants to make sure of is that we're not breeding these dogs. And so they do have to be spayed or neutered before they're even on the plane. We don't have a quarantine in the United States because we would only quarantine for rabies. And so as long as the dog is given a rabies shot 14 days before travel, they don't have to be quarantined upon arrival. So these are different things that we have to make sure are taken care of before they even board the plane. On average, it takes about a month for the dog to get ready. And so between getting spayed and neutered, any other things that might need to happen, vaccinations, paperwork, you name it, it takes some time. So we have a pretty long list of dogs that get prepared for us in advance. But the final list isn't really final until we're on the airplane and then landing somewhere else. And so they prepare a couple extras for us. And if we need to swap anybody out, we do that just so that we can make sure that we are getting the number that we have coming home.
But there's a predetermined home for them to go to before they're being picked up in Spain and shipped across the United States. It's not like they're coming back and going to Petco.
Right.
There is a designated location for each one of these dogs.
Well, one was last year in Alma, Nebraska, but that's a different story altogether.
Well, that one went for a run for 3 days.
6 days.
Was it 6 days?
Yeah, 6 days.
You were trapped in Alma, Nebraska for 6 days.
Yeah, Alma, Nebraska is now the godparent of a very nice little galgo who lives in Denver. It's wonderful.
So funny story. Dog got loose, and you stayed.
We did. So a couple of us, and it wasn't until the foster actually showed up with her dogs that we were able to catch the galgo. But that's another story altogether for another day. Sorry to sidetrack.
No worries.
We work with the Greyhound adoption groups here in the United States, and so we don't do anything as far as adoption. We don't know anything about that, so that's not our area of expertise. Greyhound adoption groups have existed for 20, 30, more than that years in the U.S., and so they know what they're doing. They're familiar with the breed. They're familiar with the shortcomings as well as the benefits. They're familiar with, more than anything, how to explain to an adopter what needs to happen in order to actually care properly for a galgo or a greyhound. And so we work specifically with those groups. They're the ones who go and find the homes, and they request through us how many dogs they'd like to bring home and approximately which dogs they're interested in. We don't ever guarantee the dog until, of course, we're on a plane.
Right. But now, when you say we, who's the we we're talking about?
We're talking about
the
most amazing group of people you could ever possibly meet in your life, our flight companions. They're wonderful, and one of them is one of our WRC members, actually. We met her last year through this, and getting ready for our tour last year, Misty Martin reached out and then pretty much accosted me until I gave her the spot on the airplane.
Well done, Misty. Well done.
She would not leave me alone. And that was it was one of the best decisions I think we made in that entire trip, because she turned out to be invaluable for many, many reasons. But she will be joining us again this year for that exact reason. She proved herself time and time again for the few days that we were over there getting the dogs prepared and bringing them over. And she handled a transport of 8 of them by herself, which is, nobody should do that.
If you've ever traveled on an airplane with a small child, you know how difficult that is. Now try imagining going through an international airport with that child. Now imagine an international airport going overseas, but with 8 dogs.
And large crates.
And large crates. Just trying to nug out that logistical nightmare.
It's basically that's 8 toddlers in large boxes and trying to figure out how to handle that. And then the USDA has to sign off on them when you get there.
So super fun. All right. So the dogs are going to go from Spain, come here to the United States, to a central hub, or to a couple of different locations. What's the plan this year?
So we're actually landing in 2 airports this year. So we have one crew that's landing in New York. And so we'll have 2 that continue on from New York City over to San Francisco. They'll land in SFO that same day, actually. And then we'll have 6 that'll stay in the New York area. And so we have one gentleman joining us, and he's New York based, and he will actually stay in the New York area. That particular group of dogs will be dispersed between, 2 of them are going to be going into Pittsburgh, 3 of them are going into Buffalo, New York, and one of them is actually going to a WRC member over in Cincinnati. She's been approved, and she's technically part of the Pittsburgh group, but we're actually processing her through Denver anyways. But her dog, she's actually picking them all up for us at JFK and driving them across for us as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then the second crew's going to Chicago, is that correct?
Correct. So the bulk of us are going to Chicago. There are 9 of us on this particular tour. So there were 5 of us last time, and there are 9 of us this time. There's a reason for that, and I'll get into that as well. But so the 2 of them are going into New York, and then of course the 7 of us will continue on into into Chicago, and then from there we disperse accordingly. So 12 will be going into Indiana again, which is local to Chicago. So those dogs are only driven within an hour, which is kind of nice. So and I think
a lot faster to get to their forever homes.
Absolutely. And we have another WRC member actually who helped us out with a home visit. Amy Antra actually did an amazing job for us and went to a home visit in Reno, Nevada, so we could actually help a family there adopt as well. So they'll be coming to Denver to pick up their galgo.
Very cool.
Yeah,
that's a fun family vacation. Let's go to Denver and get our dog.
Exactly right. In snow.
It's coming from the other side of the planet. That's very, very cool. And these flight companions, they are all volunteers.
They're all volunteers, and more than that, they're self-funded volunteers. And so it's more than just actually saying, hi, would you like to go to Spain? Because it sounds like fun. And by the way, there's a lot of work to be had, and it smells bad. Instead, we actually ask more of them. We ask them to pay for their own flights. The only thing that we cover is we are staying on site at Scooby this time because of the number of people we have. They have, for all intents and purposes, it's like a hostel on site. And so certain groups can stay there, and they've offered that to us this year just to help keep our costs down so that we can bring home more dogs. And so we will be staying there. 7 of us are staying there, which should be an adventure. So we're actually staying on site with a bunch of barking dogs. And
that sounds, I don't foresee any problems there whatsoever.
No, that's why earplugs are the number 1 thing on our packing list, as a matter of fact. So we are, so 7 of us will stay there, and we're covering the cost of that. We're covering a couple other things, including a ginormous van that we're now renting. We've been asked from a couple local groups to take some supplies out for them. So we're just asking they pay the cost of the luggage itself. So, you have to pay per piece of luggage. We're asking that they pay for that. And then we went ahead and covered the cost of the entire van so we could haul it all out there.
Awesome.
So, yeah, it's crazy. Really crazy.
The majority of funds are actually going to the dog's tickets.
That's exactly right.
The dog has to have a plane ticket basically to go into the cargo area of the aircraft.
Yeah, it's about $360 per dog to fly them.
depending on the exchange rate on any given day.
Yeah, as of today, I just looked at it. It's $360 plus $150. Well, it's $147 for a crate on top of that.
Right. So that's where that $500 number comes from. Is
Correct.
That. But there's some other additional costs for the tour itself that are being covered. So $500 is a dog, but then there's a little bit more that's actually shared across all the dogs, right?
Right. So this is what we did this year. We actually separated it out a little bit more. Actually, more of the dog cost is being forwarded onto the adoption groups this time. So we aren't covering as much of the dogs themselves. Because there are 9 of us going out, we're bringing home a lot more dogs. So we made a decision to make sure that we could actually bring home more. That was our choice. We wanted more dogs and that we would disperse the funds across more of the needs of the humans than we did actually towards the dogs. So the exact dog costs are going to be covered by the adoption groups this time, and most of that gets forwarded onto the actual adopter from there. So it costs right around $700 to $800 to actually, right now, that's what we're looking at as far as the cost if you want to adopt a galgo, because that really is just straight across the line cost. And so most of the money that we're actually using this time from this particular event is because there are 9 of us, because we did need a really large van, because there are 5 of them flying out on the same day. We've got 18 dogs flying on one day. So we needed a little bit more substance behind the actual, I don't even know the word. Sorry, I'm blanking, but we needed
logistical support.
Yeah, we needed a lot more in that regard. So we needed to make sure that we had all that covered. Our goal this time, and this was the big announcement we're making on our page today, and I haven't even made it yet, so I'm just going to share it here, is that we're trying to bring home 30 dogs was our goal. And because there is a little sweet boy who just can't let his bestie go, we decided to make it 31. So there will be a lucky 31 spring of 19.
Nice.
Yep.
And so that's spring of 19. Now, we have said that our goal is 48.
Our goal is 48.
48, but you said 31.
I did. My math skills are really bad.
I'm not a rocket scientist, but wait, yes, I am.
Good, at least one of us is.
Yeah, and so 17 more is
the fall.
In the autumn.
Yeah. So one of the situations this particular year, we had set out last April at the end of that tour. By the time I caught up on sleep, I decided we needed 18 months because we needed to, first of all, do this a little bit bigger. We needed to do it a little better, and we needed to learn from our mistakes. So I thought if I had 18 months to plan it and actually do it right, I could actually get this done bigger. And more importantly, we could save more dogs. And what ended up happening is there's like a virus or something that came out that actually affected the rabbits and the hares in Spain. And so the result of that was there was less racing. And the result of that is there were more dogs disposed. So they're at an all-time high this year for the first time in, really decades. So really in an effort to clear out that shelter, we wanted to make sure that we opened up that space. For every galgo we bring home, we save 2 lives. And so if we're bringing home 31, that's 62 dogs that we're actually saving in this process. And honestly, we're barely making a dent, but it's something. And at Scooby alone, it actually is substantial. They have 300 galgos at any point. They have 1,000 animals on site at any point. And so for us to go there, for us to work in the shelter and provide whatever skills we can offer, and for us to clear out that level of space, which is the big piece, that gives them an advantage throughout the summer to make sure that they've got the space and they've got the funds to make sure they're taking care of some of the others. And we'll return in the fall and bring home, hopefully, my goal at that point is to exceed I hope to exceed the 48 just because of the need. That's my hope and my goal.
And we will get there with your help. And so right now, what the kind of the calculation and math we've worked out is roughly 20 registrations equal a dog.
Correct.
And that's just it's not an exact science because we still don't know postage in the area, but we're pretty comfortable with that 20 registrations equal a dog.
Correct.
And so we've been doing our pup dates with our paws, and we're over the halfway point. We've cleared the 480 registrations. We've cleared that, and that's awesome. But between the registration period now and timey-wimey in the fall, that is what's going to make the difference for Daphne Legacy Tour to be able to bring home all the dogs that they want to bring back. So we need you to sign up for the Totter's Lane 7.6K, which I just think is a really, it's an awesome event for the Daphne Legacy Tour.
Yeah.
Given the fact that, Doctor Who started in a junkyard. And so many of these galgos end up in junkyards. They end up in abandoned spaces, and we open the doors and we can find something really wonderful in a galgo. And the last thing, I'm going to let you go, and we're going to get people off to go register for the Totter's Lane 7.6K. But I do want to talk about the inspiration for this whole thing. A wonderful, wonderful life, a wonderful dog, Daphne.
Yeah.
And we've told the story, and you guys have seen the video. But for you, Chris, all those years ago, you were just a tourist heading over to Spain for a vacay.
Yeah, I was drunk on a cruise ship in a hot tub. That's what started all of this. I blame Grey Goose.
Grey Goose. And while in the hot tub, you were informed of the plight of the galgo.
I was. It was a lovely couple, Marcy and David Anderson out of Steel City Greyhounds, who are, by the way, bringing in 3 from us this tour. They are actually the reason all of this kicked off. They told me about this. I Googled it. I saw what was happening. I was disgusted. And then I asked to take home a dog. Never had a dog, didn't know what I was doing with a dog, but I asked to take home a dog. And Anna at SOS Galgos, one of our friends, actually handed me Daphne. And there was no picking her out. There was none of that. It simply was just handing me a dog. And I saw her at the airport. She was just the most scared little thing. And, 26 hours later, we were in Denver. And the story kind of continues from there. But it was traumatic for a little while for both of us, trying to figure out. She was trying to learn how to be a dog. I was trying to learn how to be a dog mom. But almost 10 years later, it was truly a match made in heaven. She's my heart dog. She will always be my heart dog, and she is the reason I do this. In her name, I save all these other dogs for her. They all deserve the life she had. They all deserve the opportunity she had.
Yeah,
and that's a little bit.
I know. And
sorry.
And folks, if you ever have the opportunity to stop by RTI headquarters here in Connecticut, we have on display, and will always have on display, Daphne's collar. That was given to us by Chris a couple of years ago, and we'll always treasure that. Hoovian Running Club, for those that don't know its origin story, it all started with a group of people that wanted to help galgos, and they were off with another virtual thing, and that was a whole nother story for another time, but that got messy, and there was a little group of virtual running refugees that didn't, that became the core of what became the closed group that is now the WRC TARDIS. And so Hoovian Running Club started with a core promise that there would be at least one event every year to support galgos. And we can think of nothing better than filling this gap that exists in the Greyhound galgo rescue world, which is how to physically get them from Spain to the United States. The rescue groups around the country are great at matching up, doing home visits and matching up owners with dogs. Mm-hmm. But getting the actual dogs has always been the toughest part. And so that is the gap that Daphne. It's expensive. Yeah. And that's the gap that DLT is filling.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, if you calculate $700, $800 for the dog, and now add in a flight to Europe, any kind of transportation you need while you're there, make sure that you're adding in the hotel, you have to eat while you're there. By the time you add in all those costs, you're looking at $5,000 to adopt a dog. And a lot of people just can't do it. And I don't blame them. And so what we're trying to do is just make this more accessible. So if $700 is easier than $5,000, we want to help with that. Plus the planning involved is very extensive. And so you have to know what you're doing. And that's something we've sort of figured out as we've gone and now mastered quite a bit. But we still anticipate hiccups every step of the way, just on the outside chance that there are them. So we want to make sure we keep it as smooth as possible and save people from that type of heartache.
And that's wonderful.
So,
yeah. Chris, thanks so much for joining me for this live interview. If you guys have any questions, if there was something we didn't cover here that you got a burning question, you can head over to the Daphne Legacy Tour Facebook page, shoot them a message or ask them a question there. Or you can just hang out in the TARDIS and look for Chris, because she's always hanging out there, because Chris is a Hoovian Running Club member. Thanks so much. Go sign up for the Totter's Lane 7.6K, and and let's save some galgos. Let's save some dogs. Let's change some lives. All right. So thanks so much. Have a wonderful day. See ya. Bye.